All right, should we go ahead and get started? A couple minutes early, so. All right, first of all, is there any public comment? Do you all get public comment at Finance Committee meetings?
Not yet.
I don't think
Not
since
in
I've been here we
experience.
have, so.
Nope.
We'll try to announce the next board meeting to encourage people. So, all right, well, first off is our action items. So Amendment 1.
Have to get used to saying good afternoon now to the Finance Committee
Right.
versus good morning. So good afternoon, Dr. Baker and Ms. Grant, especially you, the newbie on the board. So hopefully I didn't overwhelm you too much this afternoon, but
No, it was all
we
fun.
have plenty of time to absorb all this.
Can you
So
explain to us the fund balance?
I could do a light job of it.
yeah, the next next Finance Committee meeting, we'll have a little test and just see how much you absorb. Anyways, Amendment 1 needs to be acted on by the Finance Committee in order to move it to the board. We talked about it at the retreat earlier today. I don't know if any further questions arose in your mind between then and now, but certainly if there are, we'll be happy to address them. And expert Rhonda is here again for what I can't answer, but as I said, pretty straightforward. Most of the adjustments many of them related to the increased revenue. We talked about the increased compensation costs that came along with that and some of the issues surrounding open positions and the adjustments that we make related to that in the general fund. So that's the majority of it. So we really need 3 actions here, Dr. Baker, one for each of the funds: general fund, special revenue fund, and debt service fund. We need 3 of those separately to approve to move to the board. So
Okay. The general fund, the special revenue, and the debt. And just real quick for the general fund, for anyone that will listen to this on TV, increase in revenue due to increase in,
yeah, our projected blended count for this year is 150 above our budget that was in the 16-17 budget. So that resulted in about $1.1 million in additional revenue split between our general education students, our special ed students. So part of that increase is in the special revenue fund, part of it is in the general fund, and then that's a major revenue increase. There's also some additional Act 18 special revenue dollars from the county that increases our revenue also. Then on the cost side, additional compensation and benefits, which is generally the case. Additional costs, well, shift in costs between open positions. We adjusted the open positions to what we think is going to happen the rest of the year. Additional dollars for temporary services. In fact, there's on the purchasing agenda later about that. And then it's just some normal adjustments we make every year when we firm up what our budget amount was with what we think we're going to come out after the first 6 months of the current year. So nothing out of the ordinary from what our normal Amendment 1 adjustments relate to.
any other? So we need 3 more, we'll start with that. We need a motion to send this to the full board for support for the general fund. Do we do the same motion second? I haven't.
Yes,
Yes.
we do.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
Because actually, I do have the Achievement Committee never really sent, I mean, we were more reviewing achievement data than creating policies and acting on it. So, okay, so I need a motion.
So moved.
Support.
All right.
All in favor?
All in favor? Okay, thanks.
Aye.
Okay, no opposed. All right. Now we need a motion for this, to approve the Amendment 1 for the Special Revenue Fund.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then 1 for the debt relief.
So move.
Support.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now we'll move on to the
Standing, thank you.
purchasing agenda.
Purchasing agenda, just a couple items on there. One is the Signing services for Lincoln School, with contract with Northview Public Schools. They provide those services for $36,000. Then the other one there is related to, we just talked about, some temporary services. We had a blanket early, this board approved a blanket beginning of the year. We're going to spend beyond that blanket, so we're asking for an increase of $156,000 to the blanket to cover those temporary services needs.
Any discussion on these items? A motion to support moving the purchasing agenda onto the full board.
So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. And the donation?
Thank you. Yeah, there's a memo there on the donation. It's for 30 Chromebooks for Stockton Elementary, 5th grade. It came through a donor's choice. They're valued at about $7,200. And we're asking the board approve that.
Who is donating these again?
Donor's Choice is a online fundraising event, or a fundraising site, much like GoFundMe and donors. There's lots of them out there, and so it was through that site that the Chromebooks were solicited and received for 5th grade classroom in Stocking to for computer instruction in that particular classroom. So,
Did somebody put that out there to?
yeah. Thank you.
Dr. Baker and members of the board, we had a teacher that applied for this, for the Chromebooks, and actually was awarded the Chromebooks.
Okay.
And didn't know that, that I should ask permission before she applied. And she didn't know that she was going to win them either. And she did, and so we're asking the board to accept that. And I have, we've sent out a communication to our members in the district to at least inform us when they apply, just in case they're awarded. But we absolutely want our children to have the Chromebook. She just didn't know to ask permission first, so
It seems like this has happened
it has.
in the past for like small, like classroom supplies, art supplies, et
And with-
cetera.
and teachers, they want to do the right thing. They, they don't know all of the policies. And there's definitely a need, and so we are very thankful that the teacher did apply. And so many of our teachers are granted items through this process, and we're trying to kind of rope it in some, but teachers ask for things for their kids because they know the students need them, and people are willing to give to our teachers, and so
Okay.
we apologize that it's kind of after the fact.
No, I guess it's, yeah. It's
And
fine.
the
Don't know either way
executive
to say that.
directors will reiterate that, before they do this, that they let them know, so we can keep aware, and make sure it's consistent with, we're trying to accomplish as a district also, too, so. Fortunately, Chromebooks is what we intended to order for our students, so it's consistent with that.
Right, yeah, that's good.
So we will follow the process, though, the process that we have for checking the Chromebooks in and making sure that they're monitored and everything is in line with our district process.
Yeah, we don't want to limit.
No,
those
no,
kinds of
we don't
things,
wanna
but
stop the
this is-
teachers,
this
but-
does. Okay, a motion to support the donation.
So moved.
Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, we'll send that on to the full board. Reports, updates.
First update is December financial statements. The dashboard is part of your packet, as well as the detailed financial information, or the more detailed financial information for those that so choose. Nothing out of the ordinary through the first 6 months. Obviously, we have the amendment you just approved to go to the board. If they act on it at the next board meeting, we reflect that updated budget within the financials starting next month. But as we stand now, the major difference year over year, it's been the case, is in our retirement and FICA and health benefits, increase in the hard cap, and just a change in accounting as it relates to the insurance, that we're recognizing the costs earlier in the year than we had in prior years, and an annual basis will be the same, so it'll even out the end. But beyond that, besides that, revenue expense are as we expected, and where we needed to make adjustments were reflected in Amendment 1. So that's that on the financial statements. Anybody has any particular questions, specific questions, be sure to answer. Not, I know Ken's anxious to talk about Warm, Safe, and Dry and the bond updates.
Warm Safe Dry is actually starting to wind up. The summary sheet that you have, the top two are all really wrapping up. We do have a little bit to do. The Ottawa Pool has some lighting. The university fence has to be finished up. Coble went to Frost, which is actually a combination of Warm Safe and Dry bond hours. We still have a few punch list items to finish up. Weatherwood is, the roof is done, and the two Franklin campus jobs are done. So those will be coming off as we close them out, and then the remaining jobs, Ridgemore, which will be, I guess what you call a minor renovation to open up for school next fall, will be on here and throughout the, and then two other projects we're taking on the Warm Safe, replacement of the gymnasium York Central, and we have some heating control, small projects. That still leaves us a buffer, safety net number. So if we get an emergency boiler phase, roof blows off, we have some money to work with. And then as we close out this next group, we make some determinations of how we spend it.
And Ms. Grant, just by virtue, you being new, Warm, Safe, and Dry was our sinking fund that it was a 5-year, right?
Yes.
Five-year sinking fund that we let expire end of last year, so received essentially all the dollars we're going to receive into the sinking fund, and it was used for major repairs over that 5-year time frame. But that's what Ken was reporting on, so that's what Warm, Safe, and Dry is,
Yeah.
what it was, I guess.
Any questions on Warm, Safe, and Dry? Bond, summary sheet is in there, and one project we will be adding to it is we have some renovation and air conditioning work to do at the university building that we'll be bringing, including that. As we mentioned, the Coble to Frost is in punch list. The 111 College Building is gone, so that will be coming off. Update on Buchanan, preliminary design work is underway. We're making some changes to keep within budget. It will be a multi-story, but it will probably be a 2-story, not a 3-story. We met Saturday morning just to make sure we had everything included. All the classrooms that are in our elementary ed spec, and we're meeting that. So we're finalizing that to make sure that fits with our budget before we move any further, but that looks the way we'll go on that building. We do expect to bid that later this spring and have a start the Monday after June is out. We will be starting on that site. That gives us about a 15-month construction window to be open for September of 18. The other one that has a hard time frame is the Museum High School. Like all projects, we're working hard to keep them within budget. Museum High School, we will probably have multiple bid packages. So the first one you'll see is a demolition bid package that will come hopefully to next month's meeting, where we can get in and demolish the things we don't need and get some pieces of the work going. That again has like the Buchanan, has a September of 2018 opening date that we can't miss. So those are our two critical ones that are moving the fastest. City High School, it is in my court with the architecture team to take what we got from the advisory committee and work to see what we can get in to maximize that. And it's taking a little time because we're trying to be very diligent that we can put in as absolutely as much as is requested within the dollars we have. So we're doing our homework and trying to be very careful that way. It'll probably be another few weeks before we're ready to go back to the group at City and share with them what we've been able to do. Ottawa, there are some academic programming decisions that need to be made that will affect the physical design of Ottawa, and that's where we are in that one right now. We've never put hard completion dates of when we need those done. When we get enough decisions on both of those buildings made to go full bore into design, we'll reset the schedule and bring that back, so everybody's aware. They're going to be they'll both be potentially 15 to 18-month projects, and part of the sequence, the schedule challenge is to figure out what we can do when school's in session. We're going to be second shift work for the most part. We can't interfere with school, and that's our given on all the projects.
So Larry and I discussed last week a plan to kind of get the board up on, and I actually can't remember the specifics what we decided, Larry, but.
Yeah, we'll bring to the board next, or this committee next month, a revised timeline of the bond spending, where we stand. Some of the things that Ken just discussed, and we'll update it as to what we know at that point in time. So let me just add another piece to the bond spending is the technology piece, which was approved back in December. As you may recall, for those that were around, the first phase, if you will, were new devices for our teaching staff primarily, and that will be taking place here over the next couple of months and get those in the hands of our new teaching staff, get them trained on the new devices, and that'll be in place obviously before school is out this year. And then next fall, we'll begin distributing the devices to the students at that point in time.
So one of the things that we discussed is that it's likely that this bond certainly the timeline is beyond anyone's current contract or expected term of service, right? So, and so we will eventually need to be holding ourselves responsible, holding the administration responsible, theoretically holding future administrations responsible, and future board members responsible. And so having a timeline of some expectations that doesn't get used to, to be hammering Ken because he hasn't got one building done that he said he'd have done by August or whatever, but that we should have a sense of when things are happening and when we should expect things to happen. And the other thing is that, even how the money gets spent, the fact that, and I think that people on the finance committee might be aware of this, but that it's not spent all at once, and how and I think that also goes into our next item, but that we need to be generally aware, so that way we can generally hold ourselves and administration accountable for moving forward on it. Plus, I don't know about you guys, but probably people are asking questions like, when is something going to get done? After all, it's been a year since we got that money, haven't we spent it yet? So, anyway, so.
Well, the two easy answers to what we've spent are the Frost Middle High School and the 111 College. Those are done. The next two will be Museum and Buchanan. And we have taken the tract of being very deliberate to make sure that we maximize the value we get out of the dollars. Being concerned if we go too fast, there's a couple of factors. One is the construction and design capacity in town can't handle it. We did have architects and construction managers talk to us when we put out an RFP of the limitations they have because they're so busy, of how much work they could take on, and how much construction capacity there is in town limits us to some extent. So that's one factor, but we wanted to make sure that we were doing the best thing in each building within the budget we had. So the track was, let's be deliberate rather than fast and try and get more value. But I'll create a bar chart type timeline for you with each project, and then I'll work with Larry so we can overlay dollars on top of that.
Yeah, and I think it just, whatever's useful, not just for us, but also for us explaining to people that we encounter, so. Great.
Bond refunding update, ready to move on? Again, just to remind, the committee back in November had a resolution to approve the refunding of our 2007 refunding bond. So it's actually a second refunding of bonds that were originally issued in 2004 with, I think it was a major issue back then. So interest rates are continue to be favorable to allow the district to save taxpayers some dollars by refunding this. Begun that process because they were refunded once. We cannot, what they call advance refund them, so the earliest we can really refund them is about now. Rates have moved up a little bit from when we had initially estimated the savings on this, which at that time was about 10 to 12% of the bonds refunded. Minimum is 5%. We're at about 7 or 8% now, so it'll still be a nice savings to our taxpayers over the refunding. We have a bond rating call tomorrow, actually, at 1 o'clock with Moody's. When we did that with the new bonds a year ago, Moody's had downgraded us. A lot more positive financially going on this time around. I don't believe we run the risk of a downgrade, whether or not they would up.
Moody's doesn't know that I'm the treasurer now.
They will tomorrow, Dr. Baker. Whether or not they believe 1 year of more positive financials enough to upgrade us again, I don't know, but nonetheless, our current bond rating was built into the projections on the savings in terms of what we believe the interest rates we could get on based on our bond rating. So after that call, we'll finish up the preliminary offering statement. We hope to price the bonds on or about February 22nd. That's the day the underwriters actually go out and receive bids from those interested in buying our bonds. And then once that is done, we will issue a final offering statement, and the bonds should close about March 21st. That's when the old bonds are paid off and the new bonds really come onto our books, and we move forward from there. So that's the timeline. Everything's moving as expected, as I mentioned, and should be all positive. So any questions on that? Okay.
Just a couple comments, questions for the committee in terms of what, first of all, this time works for everybody. 4 o'clock, fourth Mondays, so we're
got
going in this time. It is theoretically a time that people could come, so I think that especially at times like last spring when we had negotiations, there was this perception that people didn't know what the budget was, and we could at least say, you could come to the finance committee meeting and then you could know that stuff, even though there were other methods that were available. So the other things that I think of in terms of not being on this committee, but being on the board, is a handful of data points that I always think that we should know, like for academics, things like graduation rate, priority schools, that those are the things that we end up talking a lot about. And we've gotten better at making sure that, for the most part, board members tend to know those numbers. But the other numbers that, like fund balance, so we actually, fund balance is a big number that we have to know because we actually get dinged. When it comes times for negotiations, we will be, or any other big items, we have to discuss whether or not making a decision puts us in danger of getting too close to the bottom of our fund balance. And so those are things that we should know. So I think that, and also the bond, what we're doing with the bond. And then this committee would be the committee that not just approves the stuff, and I know that you guys two of you have been on this before, but I see this as the committee that also sees it as their responsibility to make sure the rest of the board understands where we're at financially. So when we're in negotiations or some other big financial crisis, it's not a surprise to find out that we're dangerously close to a low fund balance or whatever, that everybody knows all along, all the time, every time we're making decisions, every time we're making purchasing agenda, that we're keeping a track, the fund balance. So any other, and obviously then these things would be put into the calendar, like the amendments, the budget amendments that come up, but anything else that people have for this committee should do, accomplish? We will try to schedule this also after all-day retreats every time.
Perfect.
All right, well, with that, I guess the meeting's adjourned.